What's going on, everybody? It's Bill Bailey with today's Boondoggle on Domain Cleveland Radio. And today I'm going to just call this episode "And Now for a Word from Our Sponsor," because I have the pleasure of talking to somebody I've gotten to know since, we'll get into all that, meeting back at the Arnold Classic and learning about your guys' product, staying in touch, and having that veteran tie. But I give you Greg Kruger, the COO of Dreem Nutrition. What's going on, Greg?
How are we doing today, Bill? I'm great here. Thank you.
I'm good. Yeah, man, I just remembered too. I'm going to have to, at some point this summer, reach out to you guys and do a road trip and come check out the facility. But that's just where my scatterbrain just went. So I figured I better say it before I forget. But Greg,
indeed.
Usually when I have somebody on for the first time, I like to get a little bit of a background, and especially with veterans, I like to get a little bit of their history and stuff. So first question, like, what did you originally want to be when you grew up?
Yeah, I wanted to fly. I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to be a jet pilot in the military. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Actually, so you always kind of knew you wanted to go in the military, though.
Yeah, in my family at the time, minus one cousin, additional cousin now, two cousins now. My grandfathers were the only ones who had served in the military, and so I always had kind of a calling. I don't believe that everybody should serve, but I believe if you have that feeling or that calling that it is something that's important to do, and that was important to me. And when I was getting ready to go to college, I was trying to pick a college, and I was looking at some aeronautics schools, and I was looking at Purdue, and actually I was an alternate with a congressional nomination for the Air Force Academy, but it didn't end up panning out. So with that, some of my hopes and dreams towards serving were shot, and then I ended up with a 3-year Air Force ROTC scholarship to Purdue. But being young and coming from a very kind of strict family upbringing, and then finally getting out to a big university and having kind of restrictions put on me. Needless to say, in my first year of ROTC, I just decided, man, this might not be for me. But there were a number of things for that, including my scholarship. And as time went on in college, I was about 3 years in. I was putting myself through school, multiple part-time jobs at the time, and it just got to be a lot. And I had a friend who had just gotten back from Marine Corps boot camp, and he was in the reserve side, and he was talking about it. And a buddy of mine and I just decided, you know what, let's go do this. And for me, I had a couple things happening. One, I'd always wanted to serve, and it still had kind of gotten at me that I didn't. And this would allow me the opportunity to serve, even if it was only in the reserve side. But my original thought was, I'm going to go in and maybe, come out as a Mustang, where I go in enlisted, and then I finish my degree, and then I become an officer. And it would give me the opportunity to really make an educated decision as to what I wanted to do with the military. So ultimately what I did was I enlisted infantry in the Marine Corps on the reserve side, and then came back and finished up school. And then I had some events in my life that changed to where I decided, you know what, I'm just going to stick on the reserve side. I still get my opportunity to serve, and here I am. And so then in that reserve space, we ended up deploying to Iraq. And so in that now I didn't deploy with infantry. I ended up switching units in my progression to a comm unit, motor T unit. But we did end up deploying into Iraq. And so for me, then coming back from that, I felt like my obligation and my duty was fulfilled, and that was that.
Now, what was one of the during your deployment or time in, like, what were some of the oddest things that you witnessed or experienced while serving?
Some of the oddest things? I mean, just put a bunch of Marines in the desert with nothing to do. And I mean, I don't know that I want to share the different things and the different pictures that were taken, But yeah, boys will be boys and they will be silly. So I would say the behavior.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, letting off some steam one way or the other, and the dark humor that we pick up along the way.
Oh yeah, for sure. And on the military side too, what's beautiful here about Dreem Nutrition is, well, we started as CB Dream, two guys, and then I joined those two, and one of those partners didn't stay on board for numerous reasons. But Austin, our CEO, and my main partner, and then Joel, kind of a silent partner now. Austin was on a submarine in the Navy, and Joel is a combat Army veteran as well. So the three of us who built this company or rebuilt it from the different branches. So there's a lot of camaraderie, and I mean, there's just something different when you build. I think when you build something with prior service people, there's sometimes some real dedication and a different level of commitment that you might get. So I think you get that with us here for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And then, I mean, after deployment, coming home, before this, you got involved with Dreem Nutrition and stuff like that. Did you have any kind of like, pet peeve? What's like one of your pet peeves that you have with like the civilian population since transitioning out of the military?
Taking things for granted. I would say for sure. When I see people complain about little things or the way people might take other people for granted in front of them, not knowing their story. But I would say the little things, because even, I remember in Iraq, given we were out doing a repair job or scavenging some parts off some vehicles that were down, and there was this little boy, and I remember giving him a bottle of water, just a big old bottle of water, but the sheer amount of delight and appreciation, and it was like giving the best Christmas gift to a kid, like a horse to a kid in the United States. And I just give this kid a bottle of water, and it was just, I remembered at that point in time, like I will never take for granted or be wasteful of food or anything that I have, because of how valuable some of these resources are that we take for granted.
Yeah, first world problems over here,
For sure.
I got two teenage daughters. I got to try and drive it home constantly,
Yeah.
It's like, I remember like running into the little kids over there as well, and just seeing them kicking a ball around and just happy, children, despite the wreckage and everything that was their surroundings. And then I remember clicking in my head, like, there's no reason, because when I was deployed, my daughters were, 4 and 7, and I was like, there's no reason why my daughters can't play with these kids, if we are all together living. And it just gave me a lot to think about,
Yeah, for sure. My boys were 2 and 3, I think, when I deployed. That was probably the hardest part, right? I mean,
oh yeah, for sure. For me,
it's to me also, I think that one of the hardest parts is for the people that are still at home. When I went, my thought process was, I'm waking up in a different place and I have a different job, and this is my life. This is my life now. And it wasn't until the downtime, when there was absolutely nothing to do, that all of the thoughts of your family and missing them and all those things would just rush me. But yeah.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, I was one of the most, I've never been like a big, like volunteer for a lot of things, especially in the military, is like you get voluntold a lot of times, but, but it was those downtimes where I was just like, you know what? I don't want any downtime. What do you have for me? What can I do? I had to keep busy. So I totally understand that. So like, what is something that you'll always carry with you from your time of service?
Camaraderie, loyalty, being able to, adapt, improvise, and overcome, as we say in the Marine Corps. Yeah, there's just, we have it so easy. And I think it's so easy to get complacent with all the things that we have and all the resources that we have available. And maybe this is a Marine Corps thing too, because Marine Corps, man, we just get the hand-me-downs from everybody else, and so it's really learning that it's not about the resources you have, but being resourceful, right, with what you have, and just making do with what you have. But most of all is just the camaraderie and the bonds that are made, just the bonds, knowing that that's possible, and knowing that, learning to trust people under short circumstances too.
Yeah, it's like I realize not all families blood related, I mean, I'm closer to a lot of guys I served with still today than some family members, and thanks to the power of the internet and social media, I get to keep in touch with a lot of those people.
Yeah, because when you're out in the middle of the desert doing the things that that grown-ass men do when they're separated from their family, I mean, you build bonds quick, right?
Yeah, yep. But speaking of which, like, what's one of the funniest stories you feel you can share from your time of service?
Oh, one of the funniest stories? I mean, it was always just the clowning on the downtime. It's I don't know that I can share a story here that would be appreciated without pictures. Just the silly pictures in Motor T, and I would have to think. That's one putting me on the spot. I would have to think. It's been so long.
Well, funny too.
I'm at this. Yeah, you can. Why don't you tell me your funniest?
Well, I mean, like I said, there's so many, but I mean, a lot of during my time and I mean, we're probably close in age, I think. Before cell phones, before like portable. Everybody, if you wanted to capture any moments when you traveled, you actually kept a camera with you, a physical camera that you had to take the film in and wait to get the film developed. But if you ever left that camera laying around and one of the other guys got a hold of it, you got some funny looks when you went to go pick up your developed film from the camera place. I mean, I don't know how many assholes literally I had developed over the years. So you got smart with leaving your camera around.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember all the disposable cameras. I still have one, I think, that I've never had developed. That's in a box somewhere that I'm really curious as to what's on it.
Oh yeah, it's like the movie Seven. What's in the box? You gotta figure it out. You gotta take it in.
One thing we used to laugh about is we would be. And I remember we were doing a combined. This when I was still with my infantry unit, and we were doing a combined arms exercise out at 29 Palms, and everybody who's done CAX knows it's a lot of work, and but we're out, and have a chow hall set up, and what my buddy always thought was hilarious, and it was really interesting to see because, I'm like 6'3", 230 pounds, but you have all these Marines and everybody's always, looking tough at each other, but walking past each other, and we're sitting in a chow hall, kind of tough looks and glances at one another. But then the only thing that you had to drink in the chow hall was these juice boxes, right? So everything's in juice boxes, so these little juice boxes, and these things, they're the size of Capri Suns, right? Or just these tiny little boxes. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so it was always so funny because my buddy would point out, he's like, look at these people. All these guys are big, bad, and tough, looking at each other, and then sipping on these, suckling on these little straws and juice boxes. And it's always hilarious. Man.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That visual right there is cracking me up. So, since you've been out, have you been like ever got connected with the VA and stuff like that?
No, I personally didn't. I was in the reserves, as I said, and I had a pretty good pay job. Anyway, at the time, I actually spent about 18 years in pharmaceutical sales, and so when I came back into that life, that was really, I always had really good benefits, and so I never had the need really to go to the VA. And because I didn't do 20, I think I've never really looked into the benefits, because I'm not pulling retirement and didn't do a full 20 years. So I've never found the need to go.
Okay. And then what would you say is one of your greatest hopes for the country that you have been willing to give your life for?
Well, my greatest hope is that our government sees the value in the men and women that serve. I think that was I served because of the men and women before me that served, and for all the sacrifices that they made, and for believing in what I was fighting for, and specifically for believing in the men and women that I would potentially be fighting with side by side. And I've lost a little bit of faith in the government for just for the value that I don't think that they place on the lives of our servicemen and women. So that would be my hope, is that we get leadership that really, outside of the armed forces, the ones that, not the leadership in the armed forces, every one of those are brothers and sisters, but just to have a true value for the people that serve, and make sure that if they are put in harm's way, that it is legitimately for the purpose of freedom.
Yeah, and I know you're not the only one that feels this way. I mean, I've seen such a total I mean, it seems like a lot more veteran brothers and sisters that have gotten involved in politics. We've got a lot more you know, that I've noticed that have prior service that now are making the decisions. Hey, if I'm going to send somebody off to war, I know what war is. I've been there. I mean, you could talk about like Dan Crenshaw in Texas, Tulsi Gabbard in Hawaii. There's so many more that I'm noticing, because it seems like, I don't know, one thing I've noticed, like I've gotten involved with a lot of veterans organizations. It's like the government's good at sending us away and breaking us down and sending us away and training us up for their mission. But when we come home, where's the training and the fixing, end of it? And it's like veterans have to do for veterans, it seems. And I guess maybe that could be part of the reason why so many now are like, well, I'm going to get involved because I can't count on, everybody else placing those votes.
Yeah, and I tell you, man, it was disheartening being in pharmaceuticals, and I was primarily in the diabetes space, but is irrelevant. The point is we would talk a lot about managed care and insurance and coverage of our products and how they're covered, and it was always so disheartening to see when we looked and tried to get VA coverage for drugs, just how far behind the VA was on the newest science and the most powerful medications that could be used, for instance, in diabetes, on the cutting edge of the science, weren't available. They just weren't available for vets. And it always just really got me. And it was around the time too when there was so much coming up about VA hospitals and the lack of quality care that our veterans get. And I'm fortunate that I haven't suffered, from any PTSD, but I do see people and know people that have, and I just don't think that the resources are necessarily available for them. So it is nice to see more and more, I think, veterans creating paths that the government that hired them aren't willing to give them. So, and I have seen, local veterans becoming congressmen and state reps, and maybe that should be my wish for the government, is that every person in government has to have served to some capacity, regardless of what the job is.
Oh yeah, I agree. And Yeah, I mean, and like I said, speaking from my experience, it's like, the majority of my healing and dealing with, PTSD and trauma during, I was able to get my 20 in, and, majority of it's happened at these veteran founded, organizations. It hasn't, the VA it's always been behind. It's like now they're finally letting us get acupuncture and chiropractic care. It's like, that's great and all that you're paying for that. But I mean, that stuff's been around for a while, instead of throwing pills at everything,
Yeah, I'm a big. I mean, if you had, I'm all things woo woo. So, I mean, chiropractic, I don't consider that woo woo. That's medical, obviously, and acupuncture and acupressure, that's scientific and it's been around forever. Daily meditation, it's free exercise, just connection. I mean, that's a whole side life of mine and kind of a coaching space that I do as well. That's super powerful. But yeah, they're all modalities outside of prescription pills, because antidepressants can be a good tool to get you through a place. But if you're not addressing the underlying issues that's causing the need for that tool, then everything is lost. And so, yeah, I think it's important to be above and beyond pills, and especially the outdated ones.
Exactly. And then we mentioned PTSD. It's like, what is something that, what do you feel something we can do to break the stigma of mental health and PTSD?
I think it's important for people to know that if you break your finger or you break your arm, you do what it takes to fix that, right? You're like, you go to the doctor, you go to the ER, or maybe you don't. Maybe you just reset your finger or just tape it. But if you break your arm, you break your leg, you gash yourself, you're going to go to the doctor, you're going to get stitches, you're going to get casted, you're going to address that. And it's no big deal. I don't know why. Well, the stigma is that if there's something wrong, if there's something neurologically that is happening, that you're crazy, right? And mental health doesn't make a person crazy, but that's the stigma. And so I think just education and getting people, I think the first thing is just getting people to say where they are. Like, if I have a cut or if I have a broken bone, I'm going to go get it addressed. If I'm having mental health issues, I'm going to go get it addressed. I've had 2 times in my life. I'm not a believer of antidepressants long term. And I am a believer that even daily meditation can often wipe out the need for things like antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds. But I've experienced 2 times in my life where I realized I couldn't do it on my own. And I'm very strong emotionally, I'm very strong mentally. And so I did go to my doctor and I did ask for an antidepressant for 1 month. That's it. But the point was, as I said, here's where I'm at, because I'll say this all the time, vulnerability is probably the biggest sign of strength that a human being can show. And it's one of the most difficult aspects that men face. But the truth is that if, for instance, you said, hey, Kruger, man, can you give me directions to your house? First thing I got to know is, where are you? Where are you in the same state? Are you in the same city? Are you east, north, west, south? Where are you? And as soon as I know where you are, I can give you directions to me. And it's the same way for goals. When we're feeling a certain way and we know that we want to feel this, call it happiness. We want to call it, for me, the opposite of depression would be peaceful. So if I want to be peaceful and that's my goal, the first thing I have to know is, like, where the hell am I? Well, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm dealing with. This is what I'm encountering. And so we cannot plot a course towards our success and towards our goal if we don't first display the strength of vulnerability to say where we are. So I think that's one of the biggest things, is the ability to just own where we are so that we can get help.
Yeah, man. I mean, you're really speaking my language right now. I was at a 12 and 12 meeting this morning. I'm in recovery. I got 15 years sobriety, and
let me interrupt you there. Let me interrupt to say, fuck yeah, man. Congratulations. I'm sorry. Can I swear on air?
Yeah. We're
Okay,
big
I
ones.
usually swear a lot. I don't know who listeners are, but yeah, okay, but that's huge, man, and that's that discipline and commitment. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Now I'm trying to turn that discipline and commitment over to healthier eating, but I'm trying to use some of the same things that I learned to keep me clean and sober. But I mean, I go to meetings, even though I've got 12 years. A lot of people are like, well, oh, you graduated a program, you get a diploma, and you're good the rest of your life. No, it's not like that. It's a daily thing that I have to remember and remind myself every morning. I have to continue to go to meetings, because if I try and figure all of my problems out myself, it's my thinking that got me in the mess that I've been in. I need other people's input. I need to surround myself with people to help me, I mean, give me a different set of eyes. That's like we counted on in the military. We always needed kind of like another set of eyes with us to help us, to have our six, and yeah, I just
we talked about it. We've talked about it. Oh, sorry, sorry, you cut out, and I thought you finished that. I was just gonna reinforce that and say, someone who you would know this, someone who hasn't experienced sobriety, it doesn't do them any benefit to be around people who use to teach them sobriety. If you've never been a millionaire and you want to be a millionaire, it's best to hang around millionaires, because you can learn how to be a millionaire. And the same thing, it's super important, as to seek out people who have accomplished what you're looking to accomplish, because they know. It doesn't do you any good to be around people who aren't in that space. So I think probably what you're saying too, not only is the vulnerability important in admitting where you are, but the courage to find people who have achieved what you're looking to achieve.
Yeah, people, places, things, is big. And like going back to the vulnerability, the majority where I really experienced the most growth and healing, not just in recovery, because I mean, I was using to numb out something else that was hurting me inside. There are some other wounds that I was trying to just tape over, like we'd say about prescription pills or whatever. It's just like I was just throwing a Band-Aid on things. When I was finally felt like, especially with other men, which was like taboo for the longest time, to just be vulnerable and say, hey, I'm sad about this. This is really messing me up. Or I can, open up and I can cry, and I got brothers coming alongside me that are crawling into like the mental health foxholes with me, and help pull me out. Vulnerability is where I started experiencing my growth. I did, we talked about a little bit of woo-woo, I did some hypnotherapy sessions for a while. And that's where I was able to go into the roots of where my wounds were from. And, that's what I've been working on. And I just got back into a new program at the VA, cognitive behavioral therapy for PTSD, because now I know where the roots are. Hey, here's another tool to help me dig these roots out and fix them, So it's like, being vulnerable. If I wasn't vulnerable, if I wanted to put on that armor and that hard shell, I would never be able to get to the roots,
Yeah, truth. And I mean, everything is our relationship to it. I often, there's a couple things I wanted to touch on. One was the vulnerability and the crying. I'm losing what I wanted to say there. But ultimately, what I wanted to get to is everything is neurologically how it works is we just have an emotional relationship to everything. I know what it was. They did a retrospective study on Vietnam veterans, because a lot of Vietnam veterans came back from Vietnam while they were in country. There was a lot of drugs, a lot of drug use, and a lot of substance abuse. And there was a very, very high percentage of men who came back and they quit cold turkey with no issues whatsoever. And so this prompted, a retrospective study to look at that. And what they found was that truly addiction is related to pain. So I might think that, yes, okay, there's maybe a predisposition to alcohol, maybe, But everything is an addiction. Everything is an addiction. People can be addicted to working out. People can be addicted to alcohol. People can be addicted to drugs or sex or all these different things. But when it's truly addiction level, it's generally masking or related to pain. And so the ability to drill down to what the fuck is the pain? And when you can remove the pain, this is what they found from these Vietnam vets. When they took them away from the place that is causing all the fucking pain, they no longer had the addictions. And so I think drilling down, like you said, being vulnerable enough to find what the base is important, because everything is our relation to it neurologically. You know, if me and my buddy grows up and he's got an alcoholic father, let's say, that when his dad comes home drunk and beats his ass, he comes in the front door and he slams the front door. And so when he hears the door slam, he knows this is what's going to happen. And it's kind of a fight or flight response that's triggered. Well, me, I have no associate. I don't have any bad association with a door slamming. So maybe we're sitting on my couch at home and another buddy walks in, he slams the door on his way in. My buddy instantaneously has feelings of anxiety and fear or fight or flight that come up, and he doesn't even know why, because it's embedded in our brain. His brain's response to a door slamming is fight or flight. It's fear. It's whatever that might be. But until he has the ability to pause and notice and see those things, and then he can say, okay, now I'm going to work on a door slamming. And I know that the door slamming, hearing a door slam before when I was a kid might have saved my life because I could run and hide and not get beat. But it no longer serves. It no longer serves me. And now it's just the pain that happens. And our bodies get programmed to those responses. To sometimes people who have anxiety attacks, their body gets so good at having an anxiety attack, they don't have to even consciously understand or know why they're having that anxiety attack. Their body just does it for them. And until you really take the time to say, I am willing to be vulnerable, I'm willing to talk to people, I'm willing to open up and say where I am, then you can start that discovery process to heal, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent.
No, it was good because, I mean, wow. It's just like, I totally, was experiencing a reminder of this last night at jiu-jitsu. Like I've been, I've only been doing it for like a year, and then, we had the time off during COVID and stuff like that. But I always try and go with the upper belts, because I know they're not going to kill me, or they're not trying to, and I can get feedback afterwards. Mm-hmm. And last night I was going with one of our purple belts and, practicing this technique we learned. And then after, we were doing some live rolls, and I've been struggling with, when we go live, all of a sudden my brain freezes. Like all the techniques go out the window, and I'm like stiff arming and just trying to, not be submitted, and, just my breathing, I forget to breathe almost too, And I was talking to the guy and I was like, okay, what kind of advice you have for me? He's like, dude, loosen up. He's just like, he's like, breathe and relax. And then I'm like, it's hard for me to just kind of, cause I'm like, well, I can't, like, I'm not going to sit there and explain to him, well, I don't know if it, I can't keep blaming the PTSD or whatever. I want to do that, dude. I want to do exactly what you told me to do, and he's like, I know you got more jujitsu up in your head because I've seen you do the technique, but when something clicks. So it's like, I'm trying to break that right now. I'm trying to, like, whenever it's like the buzzer goes and it's time to go, I gotta still work on that and adjust to just relaxing and knowing that I'm in a safe place. No one's here to hurt me, Yeah.
And maybe you can, whatever that buzzer is, maybe you can start to let that thing sound when you're at home, do some breathing exercises and get yourself in a connected space first. But visualization is huge too. Visualizing what, not how you're going to perform, but how you feel after the class. When you're done training,
Yeah.
How do I feel? I feel proud of myself. How do you look? How do you stand when you feel proud? How do you smile? How do you talk and interact versus when you get done and you've been stiff? How do you, are you a little bit more timid with your responses and feel down on yourself? And so starting to visualize and generate the outcome that you want to be emotionally at the end of it, and then just see what happens.
Yeah, that's good. Good. Thanks, man.
Yeah, and breathing exercises, man. If you don't do breathing exercises, I'll tell you, I got into Wim Hof over probably 2 years ago and was doing his exercises, and I found some different breathing exercises as of recent called Soma breath that I do every single morning. Every single morning, it's the first thing I do is about 22 minutes of a breathing meditation. That's deep breathing, and I don't think most people think about this often, but the human body can go about 3 weeks without eating, about 3 days without water, and about 3 minutes without breathing. Breathing is the most important we need to do in order to survive. But how much time do we spend consciously focused on our breathing? Because our body unconsciously, we breathe unconsciously, our heart beats unconsciously, and we don't have to do anything to make those two things happen. But that doesn't mean that they do it optimally. And when we put our conscious focus into our breath, we can control our heart rate, right? So we can control consciously our heart rate. We can slow it down. We can control consciously our breathing. We could change it to deep breathing. And adopting breathing exercises has been so powerful. Doesn't matter how tired I am in the morning. I know that if I just throw my headphones on and get 3 to 5 breaths in, okay, now I'm going to be on my way. I'm going to complete it, and I'm going to be fired up.
Wow. And so many of the things that I've done, everything kind of comes back to the breathing and just, taking the time to be still, and then it's like, I always it's like, even when the alarm goes off in the morning, it feels like that's like the firing for the race of the day, but what do I got to do? I really don't have a hell of a lot. I gotta places I gotta be or do. I just make all these excuses in my head, or my body's still stuck in that, like, hurry up, where I need to take the time and relearn to breathe. And you mentioned Wim Hof. I've watched a couple of his videos because at our gym we have a ice bath, and I've been doing a lot of those. And that's probably my moment where I probably meditate, because I've sit in that ice bath for at least 10 minutes, and I'm really focused then. I'm focusing on my breathing for that. It's like my parasympathetic shock or whatever is being treated at that moment. But I can't always sit in an ice bath. I got to remember to practice the breathing throughout the day. So, yeah, man.
Yeah,
I'm glad
because
you mentioned that again.
Yeah, same thing with meditation. I mean, so I go from my breathing, which wakes me completely up, into meditation. But the point of meditation is not to always be sitting still. The point of meditation is that you learn it while you're peaceful, and you learn it while you're secluded from people, and you learn it in a calm environment, so that you learn how to become aware of all the things that are happening unconsciously. How am I breathing? How is my heart rate going? What are the thoughts that are racing through my head? And being able to control those in a calm environment, so that you can get up and walk around with your eyes open. I mean, there's studies done with master meditators where they study, and they know that a normal human being, when they go to a meditative state and you hook them up to different devices, they go into different brain waves, and they can measure this change that happens when they go into a meditation. But then, of course, when they're up walking around, then they get, all these different brain waves, everything goes incoherent again. But with master meditators, they start measuring them when they're walking around, and their brains are in the same state as when most people are meditating. So that's the point, is to practice these things by yourself, so that then you can start to develop them, so that you can be them all the time. And that's where the trick and fun comes in, because you realize how long a day is, and how many times you might have to reset yourself 100 times in a day, but you just give yourself that dedication to do it.
And it's funny too, because like I said, I've been in recovery 12 years, what's one of the main themes? One day at a time, we're stay in the moment, live sometimes it's 1 minute at a time. And it's like, I got all the catchphrases, but am I really practicing those principles in all my affairs,
Yeah. So let me ask you this though. So I'm huge into coaching, like I said, and different modalities like neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, it's called, and understanding language and how language creates our programs and behaviors. So I fully believe that we are the stories that we tell, right? So I believe and I really think that the services for addiction recovery and such are really powerful. The one thing I would question is, because I hear when I heard you say I'm recovering still, wouldn't it be more powerful to say I am recovered? I have recovered from, and now I maintain that. So what I mean by that is when I say I am tired, if somebody, everything is congruent. So our inner energy. So you'll never see me walk into a room drooping down like this saying I'm having a great fucking day. And you'll never, right? My energy is going to match the words I say, and the words I say are going to be the reality that I see in my life. So when I say I am an addict, and I say I am a recovered, I used to be an addict. There's two different energies. There's different energies that come with that. And isn't it okay? How long do you have to be sober before you give yourself permission to be recovered, to be strong?
Yeah, no, I get that. One of my home groups, my Friday night group, we always say, I've claimed victory over alcohol and addiction. They're
Yes.
speaking that truth right there.
Yes.
Now, when I go to other, sometimes it depends on like what meetings you go to. There's a lot of things I don't agree with some of the old timers and AA, because that's what works for them. So you kind of go and you say the way they like it to be said, and you keep, talk about your other addictions in AA and stuff like that. Where my Friday night one, we're covering all the bases, everything that hinders us from our connection with God, with our higher power,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I would say stick to only the ones that use empowering language, that use empowering behaviors. And it's okay to use, like, let's say AA, I would never put that program down because I think it's helped. I don't know how many people it has helped, but it's a lot. And so, but let's say that AA has helped you, and then for some reason, maybe it's the person running it or this particular setting or a specific new language that they're picking up that doesn't serve you anymore. Absolutely, you have the opportunity to not use that, But the biggest thing here is us being able to change the words we use to create empowering stories, right? If we're always talking about the things that cause the pain, or the things that cause the PTSD, or the things that cause whatever trauma that we have, then all our brain is ever focused on is creating pictures of the things that we've already experienced, and it creates the chemical release through our body that creates the emotions and the feelings in our body. And so I always say the solution and the problem are never in the same energy, right? So it's important to express ourselves and what we've experienced so that we can be aware of why we have developed certain behaviors, attitudes, and values. But there comes a point in time when we have to speak powerfully of the outcome that we're looking for, not the problem, because they're in different places. So an issue happens here at Dreem. Man, it was just a couple years ago. We lost, I don't know how many bank accounts we have lost in this space and in this hemp space. And I came back from doing a week-long retreat. I was doing Dr. Joe Dispenza, a personal development retreat. And the first thing Austin says when he comes in, he's like, "Hey man, we lost our bank account. We got a month until we can't do any business." And I'm like, "All right, I'm going to get on it." We didn't waste time complaining about not having a bank account, which we could have. We're like, man, we could be like, man, this sucks. But we've done it so many times. We've been through so many issues in this. It's truly the cannabis industry, even though we're on the hemp side, because everybody looks at them the same, or a lot of people do, legislatively wise. But we run into so many roadblocks and obstacles that if we sit and talk about how much this sucks and why did the bank do this and whatever the kid, we're going to get nowhere. But if we say, okay, what do we need? We need a bank. How do we get a new bank? Well, let's start here. Let's start here. And that solution. And when you think about how good it's going to feel to have a new bank versus how shitty it feels to not have a bank, those are two different energies. And so being able to put our focus into what we want versus focusing on what we don't want, I think is a huge step too.
Exactly. And it sounds like a good segue into current events now too. Let's talk more about the business. Like talk about the beginning of what attracted you to the CBD and hemp industry, and like, how did this partnership and this business originate?
Yeah, so a couple things. I've always appreciated cannabis for various reasons, but I've definitely used various forms of cannabis. I've used them recreationally, but I've found so much benefit medicinally, because I do have a brain that goes 100 miles an hour, and I would get lost in thoughts, and I would get lost in a lot of things where I just be morphins. So maybe that's not what I get from it, but I needed that at different times, and as an antidepressant at times. But through college and whatnot, I'd been a cannabis user, so I was a firm believer in it, and I'm a firm believer in where the industry is headed. So it was maybe 5 years ago now. So it's 5, almost a little over 5. It was late 2015. A friend of mine who'd I've known for over 20 years, but I'd known him about 20 years at the time, Shane. I just happened synchronistically popped on Facebook, and he had posted a picture of a newspaper clipping. It was a picture of a post, like a snapshot. So it's not like I could even go in, but I was just really, my energy drew me into look. He's bragging about his younger brother, and they're brothers, but technically you would call them maybe step brothers. They had different dads, and they're 14 years apart in age. So that would explain why I'd never met his younger brother, Austin, because of the age difference and the different families. So I just happened onto this post, and I decided I'm going to try to blow that up and read about it. And it was talking about this Austin Rodas and his other partner, Kyle, and how they had just made a CBD product. And Austin had just moved back from Hawaii, where he finished his service in the Navy on a sub. And when he was in Hawaii, he'd had issues sleeping, obviously coming off a sub. They were running 18-hour days. And I think there's a lot of, I was talking to him recently, there's a lot of studies that are, I think the submarines are going to switch from these 18-hour days because they really mess up the veterans, service people's sleep rhythms, and it's counterproductive to health. So, but his sleep cycles were messed up, and so he came up with an idea with another guy to do a melatonin and CBD syrup. And a lot of people were also pouring up the lean and had addiction issues to that, and this offered an alternative. And so they started making it in Hawaii, and it was just gangbusters. And they decided, well, let's go back stateside and let's legitimize this and get a manufacturer to start making this. And so technically they had the first CBD infused syrup that was on the market back in 2015, shortly after the 2014 Farm Bill, which made hemp legal and CBD legal under research purposes, for research purposes. So a lot of gray areas back then, but nonetheless, here he was. They just moved back stateside. One guy was Kyle was in Vegas, and Austin came back to Kokomo, Indiana. And I saw this article, and I got a hold of my buddy. I'm like, man, I've just got to get out of pharmaceuticals, because I always say the evolution of Greg Kruger was beyond the industry that I was in. And here I am. I'm starting to get more and more into meditation and all these different daily success habits, and taking ownership internally, knowing that I am the creator of my reality. And I don't believe in I don't believe that the external world is the answer to my problems. I believe getting my internal world is right. So being in an industry that's focused on that, and focused on prescription drugs that aren't natural to the body, that it was starting to become a big disconnect. And so I saw this article and I'm like, oh man, you got to connect me with your brother because I need an exit strategy from Pharma, and I'm all about cannabis. So I'd love to learn about CBD. And Austin, I met, it was just instantaneous. I just got really hungry consuming information and kind of proved who I was to him. And so just right out of the bat had a spot on the team. And so I stayed in pharmaceuticals for 2.5 years building this company. So I was balancing both until we got to the point where I was able to make the transition and quit that job and walk away from what we call the golden handcuffs in that industry, because you make good money and you have a car and you have health insurance and all those things. And I gave it up because I believe that this is the path, because cannabis people, I don't think most people know that cannabis and CBD and these things work, but I'm not sure that they really truly understand that we actually have a system in our body that makes what we call cannabinoids endogenous inside our body. Cannabinoids, they're chemical messengers, and at the cellular level, we have receptors for these. And this cannabinoid system in our body balances everything from pre and postnatal development to pain signaling and inflammation and healing and mental and this cannabinoid in our brain called anandamide, which is responsible for relaxed, blissful feeling. Well, what we have in cannabis is a plant that makes cannabinoids that are very similar to ours. So we call those phytocannabinoids. So here we are, and we know that our cannabinoid system in our body manages all these things. Well, some of the biggest causes of inflammation to the body are sugar and stress. So sugar and stress are causing a lot of inflammation, and our cannabinoid system is then enlisted to fight this inflammation. So what happens when we overstress or overwork or have a horrible diet? What happens is our cannabinoid system cannot keep up. So why does CBD and why do these other cannabinoids look like they're the cure-all for all these disease states and issues? Is because what they do is they assist and enable the system within our body to work optimally. So that's why we see these things working. And so, to kind of a diversion there, but ultimately, I saw the benefit and where this industry was headed and how we can get people off prescription meds and how we can get more to a natural plant-based lifestyle that balances these things, of course, along with meditation, breathing, and all those things that I talk about.
Yeah. Wow. So like, you kind of covered, what it's all about. Like, what year was that where I don't even remember the year that we met at the Arnold? Like, you guys we're still brand new then, right?
Well, kind of. So we were the first CBD company at the Arnold Classic. We, man, what a fun time. What a cool thing to be a first of, to that big Arnold Sports event. So I believe that was 2017. Yeah. Okay. So I remember we got that booth, and we had all kinds of questions before we got the registration, and then we set up our booth, and it was like 5 minutes before the first day was opening, and we had this group of 8 guys that just came up with really stern faces. We need to see your list of ingredients, and questioning everything. We thought we were going to get packed up and headed out right there, but we were able to show them lab results and educate them a little bit and let them know there's no THC whatsoever. Back in those days, we didn't have any full spectrum products, even though the legal limit is 0.3% THC or less than 0.3% THC for hemp. All of our stuff was 0 THC because we wanted to be able to serve law enforcement and military and everybody who had a stigma against THC. And I mean, trying to convince people in 2015, 16 that low levels of THC aren't going to intoxicate you was talk about stigmas is marijuana stigma, right?
Yeah, definitely. And that was the only, I mean, I live in Ohio, I'm only 2 hours away from Columbus. Never been to an Arnold Classic before, and I haven't been back since. And it's not that I don't want to. It usually falls on something else that I got going on up here. on the weekends, but it just so happened a buddy of mine that works in the vitamin supplement industry. It's like, hey, I got some free passes. You want to go check it out? And I'm like, yeah, I've been wanting to come check it out, and I don't believe in coincidences, man. I was supposed to be there that weekend. I see you guys being veterans. We strike up a conversation, and now here we are all these years later, man. And I still feel you guys are part of my healing journey. So, man, I'm glad we've been able to, stay connected and in touch, and that you guys, have done, helped out with this podcast, which is like, another form of therapy for me, because, dealing with anxiety and PTSD, it's like you forget how to communicate with people, and this gives me the opportunity to keep having conversations. Like my buddy Pete just chimed in. What's up, Pete? Interesting conversation, he says. He's a guy I served with overseas, and but I'm able to have these conversations now, man. And you guys help play a role in helping calm those nerves, man. So
no,
man.
That's honored to be a part of that. And I think that first year we made, besides you, there was a couple other people. We just made that was just a perfect year for us. We made some really good connections that year that we've maintained contact with. We went the following year. CBD companies there, and then we just didn't go again because for various reasons as well. But I think it is important for people to know who might be listening that there's a reason that cannabinoids do help with PTSD, or can. I'm not going to say that they're going to help for everybody. We don't make any kind of product claims like that because we need clinical trials to do that, and we remain in integrity with that. But the reason that these can work for people is because this system is important for mood development, and for the reason CBD can work is because CBD blocks the enzyme that breaks down that anandamide that I talked about. So if you have this cannabinoid that creates a blissful, relaxed feeling, and then you can stop the body from breaking it down, what do you get? You get an extended blissful feeling. Then you've got other cannabinoids like CBG, which are known and believed to help increase the amount of anandamide that is made by the body. So I think it's important for people to really pay attention and know and watch for the next decade. I mean, it's going to be years until we get all these things figured out. But THC and CBD, they're just two movie stars. They're movie stars. There's over 120 of these types of compounds in cannabis that we're just starting to study a few of them. So, but they're huge for relaxation and calming, and just another tool. Because there's still something outside of yourself. And the truth, like we said, the whole point we started with was vulnerability and feeling. And that all comes from inside. But you have strong tools like this that can help also.
Yeah. And like, how many other like growth stories have you witnessed since you've been involved in this industry?
What do you mean by growth stories?
Like people that, when you first met them, they were, either like, dealing with the pain or the anxiety and stuff like that. And then since they've been on, using your product, are become different, like living a new quality of life.
Yeah, man. So many, too many to count, to be honest, from people who fully believe that our products help them with their cancer, to people who PTSD, sleep, pain, so many. And I think, I want to mention this because again, product claims and integrity. When I have people ask me, well, my so-and-so has cancer, will this help? The first thing I do is I refer them to some other options, and that is to understand that our body has the ability to fight mutations in cancer. Like we all create them, and our body triggers cellular death. But when we have excessive inflammation, it destroys our body's ability to do this. And so there was a doctor. I'll try to remember. If I don't remember right now, I'll get it to you. So if you have post show notes, you can look it up. But I don't remember his name. He's a chiropractor, but he's got a book, and it's called cancer killers, the cause is the cure. And so this guy got diagnosed with a type of brain cancer, and I don't think he had a very good prognosis. But he, like I said, he's a chiropractor, so he had he's a doctor, medical knowledge, and he started to seek out, what feeds the cancer instead of how to kill it, like what feeds it. And what he ultimately ended up doing was he cut out sugar. And he realized the amount that sugar feeds cancer, because really, truly, sugar feeds inflammation, and inflammation keeps the body from killing its own cancer. So this is where he gave cancer killers the cause is the cure. And so he was able to cure himself and write this book. And so the reason I bring that up is because I like to express to people the power that the human body has, and the power that this endogenous system has, and the destruction that inflammation causes. So cannabinoids happen to have massive anti-inflammatory properties. So go figure that if you take these supplements that reduce inflammation, you start to see improvements in all these different disease states, because inflammation is at the base of every single disease state. There's an underlying inflammatory response in everything, in every disease state. So what these are really doing, so we get countless responses from people of all these different benefits they have, but it really comes down to, in my opinion, something that's the system in the body so that it can fight its own inflammation, because you're taxing the shit out of it, because you're overstressed and you don't have stress mitigation techniques like breathing and meditation and those type mindfulness exercises that you're putting, or journaling, or therapy, or talking, or talking to counselors. If you don't have these things to mitigate stress, then what are you doing, right? And a lot of times that comes with poor eating habits and overeating or binge eating, and so we have all these different behaviors. So when you ask that, I always like to bring that back, because I don't personally think that these supplements are cure-alls. I think they are beautiful supplements to the system that we have in our body. And adding them in can have massive effects, and they can have very small effects in just supplementing our well-being.
Gotcha. And then, let's talk a little bit about, we touched on it briefly, but people's misconceptions of cannabis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, everything is our relationship to it, right? Like the door slamming. So when people grow up hearing that this is your brain on drugs, and this is marijuana and reefer madness and all this shit that's pumped into your heads, but that's your only information source. It's not experience. I think experience is truth. Now, the truth is that you can take cannabis products, like hemp-derived cannabis products, that have very little THC or no THC, and you'll never get intoxicated, and you can appreciate the medicinal benefit of those products. And there's studies and literature for days that discusses the science behind it. So at the end of the day, it's just important for people to be able to realize that sometimes we create belief systems and they're wrong. And in this case, the stigma around cannabis, it's wrong. That doesn't mean cannabis is for everybody. That doesn't mean everybody's going to get the same effects. And that doesn't mean that one person uses THC and it works for them, and the next person it makes them highly anxious. Well, then just don't use THC, but don't discount the other 120 compounds or the terpenes or all the components that exist within this plant that we know are very powerful.
Yeah, and you mentioned terpenes too. Can you explain what those are?
Yeah, so terpenes give plants their smell. So if you're in a forest and you're smelling plants, those are the terpenes volatilizing. And so the terpenes in cannabis are not independent to cannabis. They're found in other vegetables and plants. There's over 20,000 terpenes, I believe, in nature. And so terpenes have been studied for a long time, and they have additional benefits: anti-inflammatory, antifungal, antibacterial. They're protective measures for plants as well. So in cannabis, when we process the plant and extract the cannabinoids, the terpenes are pretty volatile, and a lot of times those are lost in the extraction. So our zero THC product, for instance, called Terpene Advantage, we made this originally because, one, we wanted zero THC to serve everybody so if you have a stigma with THC, fine, there's none here, you can have CBD, no THC. But we knew that it by itself wasn't the answer. It can do good things by itself, but Mother Nature makes things pretty freaking good. And then we as humans say, oh, there's 200 pieces, I just want that one, and I'm just going to push the dose through the roof, and that's what I'm going to do. We believe that we want to try to rebuild it as much as we can. So we worked with a medical doctor, to formulate a terpene blend to add back in, so that we can get some of the additional benefit of the plant. Obviously, if we had to extract all the way down to CBD to have no THC, we wanted to add some other components back in, and other cannabinoids just weren't available at the time yet. So cannabinoids or terpenes have huge medicinal effect. In fact, a cool study was done where they found that the aerosol of the forest has medicinal effects on people. So go figure, if we know that terpenes have medicinal effect, and we know that when you smell a plant, it is the terpene volatilizing, then when you walk into a forest and you can smell the trees and you can smell the flowers, that they've actually found that there's medical therapeutic effects that happen by being in the aerosol of the forest. So terpenes are hugely important. The more the cannabis industry moves forward, the more you'll see and hear more about terpenes.
Okay, nice. Now, I was reading. Well, first, how's business been now since? I mean, is more legislation is starting to open up and be more, I guess, receptive. How's business been going for you guys, especially, I mean, just coming through the pandemic and everything?
Yeah, man, if there's one thing I've learned in this industry, it is we have not stuck to a projection or a business direction that we've ever put out from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. It's always changed. It's been difficult, even though hemp was taken off schedule, was descheduled, and 2018 Farm Bill made hemp a legal crop. It takes time for policies to change, and the state of Indiana has been, it's been difficult here. We've been involved in legislative movements since 2015. 2019, the state of Indiana made smokable hemp flower illegal. So hemp itself is legal. The flower, the buds that we grow are required for the extraction. Every part of that plant is legal, but the state made it illegal to produce or sell or put any resources towards the production of smokable hemp flower. Why? Because police officers might get it confused with marijuana. So it's like a step backwards. We're moving in this direction. Work with us. It's legal, and so we were part of a lawsuit and spent a lot of money and fighting these types of things in Indiana. It's been pretty difficult, to be honest. So it's not been beneficial for the farmers here either. So even though it's legal, there's still a lot of ground to cover, and we've been very active in that. COVID just brought a whole new ball game. We were about 95% of our business at the time was with retail partners. So the vitamin stores and the yoga studios and the different places, some jujitsu places, that was our bread and butter. That was what kept our lights on. And 80% of those closed. That definitely took a toll on us. We've had to restructure. We had to do layoffs, and we've really fought to survive, but we've done it, and we're still here. And the good news is this hasn't been announced, so I won't drop any names, but we did just lock our first big box retailer, and it's actually a Fortune 500 company that we're going to get some products rolled out, about 200 to 250 stores at first, see how they run, and they have got 1,900 stores. So nice. we've worked and we've made it this far, and I think that's going to open the doors. It's really going to open a lot of doors for us. It's been powerful, but having quality products having quality products that work. I mean, you can attest to I think our topical gel is one of our top ones. Certainly the oils can act on demand, gel caps, transdermal patches. We've got so much. If people want to check out our website, and we're branching into new spaces too. The next rush is really in the mushroom space, right? And it's not just psychedelic mushrooms, which psychedelic mushroom, that's a whole nother topic that we could go off on.
Another episode. Yeah.
Yeah. And why those are important for being able to, they break down reality so that you can rebuild a new reality, and how that's beneficial to PTSD and things. There's a lot of studies being done there, but just mushrooms in general. And we just launched, or last year we launched a 10 mushroom blend of 10 different mushrooms in a couple capsules that you take a day, called Braingenics, and we've got a brand called Hocus Focus. So for two different marketing strategies for different people, but the point is for better cognitive function. So we're starting to get good traction with products like that too.
Nice. Man, all right, we've been going for like over an hour. I'm gonna have to. We're definitely gonna have to connect in the future and see how the mushroom stuff takes off and where things are going, and continue this conversation. But before we get ready and wrap up, for any of our audience out there and listeners that want to give your products a try, all the stuff that you mentioned, where would you send them?
You cut out on me on the last part there. Are you asking where to send them?
Yes.
Yep. So dreemnutrition.com. So Dreem spelled with 2 E's, DREEM, www.dreemnutrition.com. That'd be the best place to go and learn. And we've got links if you have any questions. I'll go ahead and tell you that if anybody's listening here, my personal email is just Greg, Greg, at dreemnutrition.com. So if you've heard anything here that is of interest to you, and it doesn't matter if it's about the CBD stuff or if you're looking for, if you're a veteran or anybody, but you're dealing with PTSD and you're looking for ideas regarding meditation and breathing exercises, I'll help you out and point you in the right direction there. I mean, ultimately we're just here to help people. So, but Greg at dreemnutrition.com. If you have any specific questions for me, we're always here to help customers. I mean, that's what we believe in. Yeah,
I did a retreat with the Lone Survivor Foundation a while back, a couple months ago, and they were talking about a lot of the partnerships that they had and the different modalities they had helping veterans with their PTSD and the breathing and restorative yoga and stuff like that. And I was pitching you guys to them. So man, I'd love to see you guys get connected with them too, Yeah.
If you've got a connection there, certainly send them my way and I'll reach out that direction. And, that's one thing for anybody listening, anybody suffering from PTSD, there's so much power. All the power is within. I always tell my boys, I'm like, that old saying where when you point at somebody, 3 fingers point back at you. I say that's total bullshit. All fingers always point back, and there's always, if we are willing to, like I said, be vulnerable and take charge, man, there are so many modalities, and if we can let go of the stigma around woo woo, like that meditation is woo woo, and it doesn't have to be spiritual. It's not about, it's about connecting here. If we can get around stigmas like that, there's so much power in that. If we can get around stigmas about cannabis, there's so much power in those medicines. And there's so many modalities and so many tools out there that are available.
Awesome, Greg. Thanks, man. I have some notes here for part 2. We will have to do another one. You mentioned Dr. Joe Dispenza. I've read some of his stuff as well. So it's like, I mean, there's so much on this meditation and spiritual journey that I think we, like I said, there's no coincidences. We cross paths for a reason. So I will definitely be talking with you offline some more. And for all our listeners, for all the Boondoggle fans, if you go order some products, we got 10% off if you use the promo code Boondog10. It's BOONDOG10 at checkout over there. So once again, Greg, thank you for your time. Thank you for just your friendship, and just, man, I felt like I had a therapy session today too, man. Appreciate it.
Hey, yeah, perfect, man. Yeah, everything. There is no such thing as coincidence to me. Coincidence is just something that we didn't comprehend as a possibility, right? But to me, it's synchronicity. So glad I could be of service, and would love to connect again sometime. Let's talk about that deep shit and the meditation and the breathing and all those different things, because there's so much power within.
Yeah, definitely. And I am going to make that trip this summer, man, out there to see you guys for sure.
So, right on. Well, we're here. You know how to get a hold of us, my man.
Yeah, definitely. So one last favor before I let you go. You mind cutting a promo ID for the show?
A promo ID?
Yeah. Basically what I do with the veterans is like, I have them introduce themselves at their last rank that they held before they got out. And then just, introduce yourself at your last rank, and you're listening to today's Boondoggle.
Yeah. All right. Just right now?
Yeah.
Hi, this is Sergeant Gregory Kruger and United States Marine Corps, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle.
Awesome, Greg. Thanks a lot, brother. I really appreciate this. And yeah, dude, we're going to stay in touch, man. Thanks again for your time.
All right, brother. We'll talk soon, man.
All right. Bye-bye.